I'd like to introduce Raven from the United States, who takes LDN for Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, spondylitis, and Lyme's disease. Thank you for joining me, Raven.
Hello, thank you for having me, Linda.
Could you tell us, how old were you when you started to experience some of these symptoms?
My symptoms go all the way back to 1985, and it actually started with ataxia, and my parents thinking something was extremely wrong with me, and they brought me to the hospital, and I was never the same really since, because a few months after the ataxia, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis at 18 months old. And then I was re-diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 1992. And all through this, I had arthritic issues starting from age 6.
Wow.
So
And how old are you now, Raven?
I'm 29.
Okay. So, having all these things wrong with you, I mean, how did that impact on your childhood?
It did not make it easy. I didn't have many friends. I was picked on, ridiculed, called penguin because I walked with a limp because I was in so much pain. Then when I was on the immunosuppressants and the steroids and my face would blow up, I would get made fun of for that as well. Other kids didn't want to, well, it wasn't the other kids, it was the parents of the other kids didn't want to let them play with me because I was different, sick. People were weird and thought that you'd catch whatever that sick child has. You don't want to be by that sick child. So it was not fun.
No, certainly doesn't sound like it. So, when were you diagnosed with MS?
I was diagnosed with MS in July of 2011, and that came as a very big awakening and eye opener because I had been on treatment for 5 years for the Crohn's disease. That was my first um, semi successful treatment, I guess you could say,
Hmm.
because it suppressed the symptoms to where I was able to function and have a more normal life. But it didn't get rid of the pain. I was still taking a lot of pain medication. I was still taking Medrol packs, which is the steroid dose packs, every couple of months to kind of get me over the edge and just make me have a normal, or what's considered to be normal, quality of life.
Hmm. And what about the spondylitis?
That is something that is suspect that I've had my whole entire time that I've had all these other conditions because I have bone fusions in my neck, feet, and SI joints are partially fused as well.
Well, that must have played a very big part in your life, not being able to move properly. And what about the Lyme disease? When were you diagnosed with that?
That was just recently in December of this past year, and it kind of explains all of my other symptoms and prior diagnosis that I have, in fact, Lyme disease, and that's what the monster has been since 1985.
Okay. So, to give us an overview so we can see what it was you had to live with on a daily basis, um, all the symptoms and pain and whatever you had to live with, if you could explain what it was like before LDN in a typical week, I think would be good. How would you feel in an average week?
In an average week, I would just, before the LDN, I couldn't really function at all, especially after the medication failure of the Humira that I was taking. That was the trigger to the MS. And I'm sorry if I got off topic and failed to mention that. But being without any medication there afterwards, I was just given painkillers and antidepressants, and it was one of those things where they weren't improving my quality of life at all. I was just contently dying, and it was awful. And I didn't want to be that person, so I got on the computer and I researched and I researched, and then on an online support group, I believe it was MD Junction, I came across a woman whose husband had MS for 10 years and was taking LDN, and she told me about it. And her name is Noni, and I call her my little angel. I know that's her screen name, so. But she's the one that told me about LDN, and I'm very grateful she did.
So before you found LDN, could you just list what symptoms you had to live with?
I had complete exhaustion. I had such horrible balance that I was using walkers and canes. I was in the bathroom all the time. I just couldn't function at all. The heat would get to me to the point where it would dehydrate me and make me collapse. Gosh, it was just so much. It had consumed my entire life.
Mm-hmm. So if you had to rate your quality of life on a score of 1 to 10, and 10 was the best, what would it have been at that time?
At that time, I would say it was probably a 2.5, 3.
Mm-hmm. So you heard about LDN on this support online group. How did you go about getting a prescription?
That was something that was extremely difficult for me. I went to several doctors, begged, pleaded, asked them, and it was a year that I went untreated, and I didn't end up getting a prescription because I had no health insurance. So I continued to do more research, and I found out online how to obtain my own.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you first started, did you notice any introductory side effects?
No, I didn't have any side effects. I actually started it the night before my favorite holiday because I really wanted to enjoy the 4th of July. And I woke up the next morning and it was almost like my life was given back to me.
That quickly?
That quickly, because wow. I wasn't on any other treatments. I knew that I had to be very careful with the pain medication, and I had weaned myself down so that I could at least have that 6-hour window for the LDN.
Mm-hmm. So what did you notice? What improvements?
I walked. I didn't even think to get support from a cane or a walking stick or my walker. I just got up and was able to walk and stand on my own 2 feet. And it was something that I didn't even think about.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized that I wasn't bothered by the heat, I wasn't feeling as tired, I was enjoying the day, it was a miracle.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. So how long have you been on LDN now?
Since July 3rd of 2012. So,
okay. What would you say your quality of life is today?
I would say it's about a 6, 7. It's greatly improved.
Hmm. And how is your Crohn's now?
The Crohn's doesn't seem to be much of a bother because I've got the LDN, and with that, I've also cleaned up my diet.
Hmm.
So the two of those together has definitely made a difference.
And what about pain medication now?
The pain medication I still have to take every once in a while because of the bone fusions, and I have osteoarthritis, which LDN does not treat.
Hmm. Okay. Well, that is one really, really remarkable story. I'm absolutely amazed. It's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. It's really inspirational, and long may LDN continue to work for you.
Thank you. I hope that people out there definitely have the awareness and the wherewithal to research and not be afraid and try something so wonderful, especially since there's little to no side effects.